Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to go through the second part of the chapter, Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues. This is the detailed explanation of the chapter, and we came to know up until now that how Tut's mummy was discovered by Howard Carter in 1922. He wanted to study the mummy indeed, but in the process of taking it out and scanning it, he destroyed the mummy completely, destroyed it to an irreparable extent. Then, many years after 80 years to be exact, the mummy was then taken out for scanning, and Zahi Hawass and his team, they discovered in the process that how the mummy was completely damaged. But we cannot rule out this point too, that with the mummy, that is Tut's mummy, the richest collection was found. A lot of gold, a lot of other elements like the daily use items, the murals all over, and a very special kind of treatment. People still are amazed by looking at all of them. Tut's mummy was regally ahead of all his countrymen. People still wish to know how he died, how he lived. So this part consists of the lineage of King Tut. It also talks about the CT scan, how it was done, and a little more about the sophisticated technology that we have today. So let's get started. Archaeology has changed substantially in the intervening decades, that is from 1922 to 2005, focusing less on the treasure and more on the fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. It also uses more sophisticated tools, including medical technology. In 1968, more than 40 years after Carter's discovery, an anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and revealed a startling fact. Beneath the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs were missing. So in 1922, when Howard Carter discovered the mummy and he wanted to take it out, he damaged it. Because at that time the technology was not as sophisticated as it was years ago. Even in 1968, X-rays could be done. But in the 21st century, a lot of sophistication has emerged in the area of technology. And today we use CT scanners to come to know the intricate details of any human being's or any dead person's body. So let's move forward. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done with computed tomography or CT, by which hundreds of X-rays in cross-section are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. What more would a CT scan reveal of Tut than the X-ray? And yes, first of all, let's see a CT scanner. And what happens in a CT scanner, the body goes inside, the head first, and hundreds of X-rays are being taken from all the parts, from all the directions. And all those X-rays are then piled up together like slices of bread to finally create a 3D image. And this is how it was done on King Tut also. But the CT scanner can reveal the details of the physical body. Whether it could reveal anything about the life and lifestyle of the person, that is still a mystery. And could it answer two of the biggest questions still lingering about him? How did he die? And how old was he at the time of his death? So yes, the CT scanner would come up with various results, but these two questions, the biggest questions, how did he die and how did he live? Well, King Tut's demise was a big event, even by royal standards. He was the last of his family's line, and his funeral was the death rattle of a dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear. So, why King Tut was so special? Because he was the last heir, the last successor of his family line. He had no children. So, when he died in his late teens, the entire family line that lived for centuries, that ruled over Egypt for centuries, it came to an end. And that is why his death was indeed pretty surprising. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear. Now, in the chapter, we are going to learn about the family line, a bit about the family line. It starts with Amenhotep III. Tut's father or grandfather was a powerful pharaoh who ruled over for almost 4 decades at the height of the 18th dynasty's golden age. His son Amenhotep IV succeeded him and initiated one of the strangest periods in the history of ancient Egypt. These are the two people, Amenhotep III and Amenhotep IV, who started off the strangest period. Why? Let's see. The new pharaoh promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, changed his name to Akhenaten, or servant of the Aten, and moved the religious capital from the old city of Thebes to the new city of Akhetaten, now known as Amarna. So when this Akhenaten or Amenhotep IV, when he started ruling, he made drastic changes, especially in the religious arena. He started promoting the worshipping of Aten, the sun disk, which is visible on your left, and he was the one who was the source of all the blessings by Aten, as you can see in the right hand side picture, that from Aten he was the one receiving all the blessings, and from him the blessings will then be passed on to the common people. So he promoted the worshipping of Aten. He changed the religious capital, shifted it to Amarna, earlier known as Akhetaten. So this was also a major change. And then he stopped the worshipping of god Amun. He attacked god Amun. So first of all, let's go through that particular part, that how he did that and what he actually did. He further shocked the country by attacking Amun, a major god, smashing his images and closing his temples. It must have been a horrific time, said Ray Johnson, director of the University of Chicago's Research Center in Luxor. The site of ancient Thebes, the family that had ruled for centuries, was coming to an end, and then Akhenaten went a little wacky. So Akhenaten did all this, that is worshipping of god Aten, changing the religious capital, and attacking god Amun. All these acts that were very random, whimsical, eccentric, made Ray Johnson call him wacky. And wacky, if you describe something or someone as wacky, you mean that they are eccentric, unusual, and often funny. So Akhenaten was a very eccentric, wacky kind of ruler. He made tremendous changes, especially associated with religion. And ancient Egyptians, they were very religious people. Maybe that is why his ruling period was one of the most strangest ones. Moving forward, after Akhenaten's death, a mysterious ruler named Smenkhare appeared briefly and exited with hardly a trace. Now Smenkhare, maybe that is the right pronunciation. He ruled for a very brief period of time and then he exited and vanished. Nobody knows much about him. And then a young, very young Tutankhaten took the throne. King Tut, as he is widely known today. The boy king soon changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. and oversaw a restoration of the old ways. He reigned for about 9 years and then died unexpectedly. So Akhenaten brought a lot of religious changes in Egypt. But then, when this new king, the young boy, King Tut, he became the pharaoh, he restored the old ways. Akhenaten, he attacked god Amun, but when King Tut became the king, he started worshipping god Amun, and in the process, he changed his name also from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun. So, this was the major event in his life as a ruler. But what beyond that we still don't know. Well, regardless of his fame and the speculations about his fate, Tut is one mummy among many in Egypt. How many? No one knows. The Egyptian Mummy Project, which began an inventory in the late 2003, has recorded almost 600 so far and is still counting. So there are hundreds of mummies in the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, and all those mummies, those which are discovered, those which are undiscovered, they hold so much in them, around them, and with the help of these mummies, the murals, the burial chambers, we learn a lot about ancient Egyptian history. The next phase, so once the mummies are found out, then the scanner comes in the picture and scanning is done. The next phase, scanning the mummies with a portable CT machine donated by the National Geographic Society and Siemens, its manufacturer. King Tut is one of the first mummies to be scanned, in death as in life, moving regally ahead of his countrymen. So King Tut, the boy king, went through the CT scan and he was scanned in death as in life. Now, scanning, the literal meaning is like through a scanner for sure, but scanning is also associated with searching, detailed searching. So, King Tut is scanned. Why he died? When did he die? How he died? How he lived as a ruler, as a person. People still have so many questions about him. And that is why he is scanned even today. The chapter might have been written in 2005 or in 6, but it's been 15 years and we are still scanning, still searching. So with this, I will close the text part, but will present you a little part of some of the articles published in the recent years. So let's go through them. Reuniting the members of a family separated 3,300 years ago requires a little less stringency than the standards needed to solve a crime. By comparing just 8 of these variable regions, our team was able to establish with a probability of better than 99.99% that Amenhotep III was the father of the individual in KV 55, who was in turn the father of Tutankhamun. So Amenhotep III was basically the grandfather of King Tut. Then who was the father? Much to our delight, the comparison of their DNA proved the relationship. New CT scans of the KV55 mummy also revealed an age-related degeneration in the spine and osteoarthritis in the knees and legs. It appeared that he had died closer to the age of 40 than 25, as originally thought. So this mummy, KV55, people thought earlier that he died at the age of 25. But later on it was revealed that no, he died at the age of 40, approximately 40, as originally thought. With the age discrepancy thus resolved, we could conclude that the KV55 mummy, the son of Amenhotep III and Ta, and the father of Tutankhamun, is almost certainly Akhenaten. So, After years of searching, scanning, DNA analysis, it was finally revealed that Tutankhamun was indeed the son of Akhenaten, who was the son of Amenhotep III. So that is the family line that is revealed today. And this is how the scanning took place. The mummy of King Tut, Zahi Hawass, is there, his team is there, and this is how it finally came to an end. There is a little about his death. Research suggests King Tut died in 1323 BCE from a gangrene infection at age 19. The infection was possibly the result of a broken leg, and that is what is presented here. When they looked at his legs, there was something wrong. Early investigations pointed to bone fragments in Tutankhamun's skull to propose the theory that he died from a blow to the head by political rivals. However, a full scan of his body in 2006 found the damage to King Tut's skull occurred after his death due to bad handling of his mummy. So, the damage to the skull was not the reason of his death. Another 2010 study of Tutankhamun's DNA found he had malaria and was disabled, requiring a cane to walk, which could have precipitated his fall and made his leg infection worse. So, because there was some disability in his legs, he used cane to walk properly, and it was revealed that he fell off days before his death, maybe one day before his death, and because of the infection, the injury caused, he died. So these are the revelations, and whether we could guarantee that this is what has happened, we could not say. But these are the revelations up until now, that the family lineage was cleared out. To an extent, we could finally find out how he died. But still, there are a lot of mysteries surrounding his life, his ruling period, his death also, aftermath of his death, and it's all such a huge saga, an epic, a long story it appears, and there are so many characters. Many are found out and many may still be found out. So if there is a new character, the story might develop into a something different kind of plot. So we will see to the last part of the chapter in the next session. Up until then, goodbye and thank you.